The spaceship hovered above a giant tower whose top was hidden in the clouds. At the helm, the girl Roroa, the alchemist of the holy shrine, had discovered a weak spot in the structure and warned of the imminent breach of its barrier. 3 seconds left before the crash. The navigator called out to Ryan and Mora. Ryan asked for Mora's help. Mora took the task in hand, using a spell. The barrier was breached and the spaceship gained full power. He managed to get through and ended up inside. As the entrance compartment with the stairs opened, Commander Mayusama praised the companions and asked if anyone was injured. All the girls answered in the negative. Now the protagonist took over control of the action from Roroa. He said that the girls had done a great job, but it was time to return to the safe zone. With that, all 3 disagreed and wanted to go along with Mayusama. Rayana convinced the commander that the meaning of their lives was to serve him. The others said that although they were not very strong, they were very willing to help him if he would only believe in their strength. These pleas brought a smile to Mayusama's face. He turned to all 3 girls. The commander gave the order to retreat and suddenly used magic. His companions froze in place with surprise on their faces. They couldn't believe or understand what had happened. Rayana asked not to go alone, Roroa expressed contempt, and Mora accused the commander of cruelty. Tears streamed down their cheeks. Mayusama's face reflected regret. The words begged for forgiveness, and lastly he stroked Roroa's hat. Moving deeper into the building, the hero reasoned that because of the peculiarity of his demon blood, the servants could not disobey. The last thing he wanted to see was their tears. Mayusama reached the large doors. He could only count on himself now. Determinedly he opened them. The hero turned to Raphaela, ironically clarifying if 500 years had passed. From the center of the room, a maiden angel answered him, calling the one Lucifer, and then clarified the exact time of 512 years and 353 days. She guarded the sphere and clarified whether the purpose of his visit was to take control of the Tower of the Gods in order to stop the extinction of demons once and for all. Raphaela asked why the angel Lucifer did not obey orders from above, for all races except the human race should cease to exist. But Mayusama only stared at her frantically. The angel explained that all races did not stop going to war against each other. That's why the gods decided to destroy them. To which Lucifer replied that there was nothing in common between his past personality and his current one, because he had changed a lot after meeting the different races. Mayusama admitted that he could be called a fallen angel. Raphael, however, is not privy to all the details. The wonderful singing of the sirens, the scenery opening from the dragon's back, the music of the elves, the skill of the dwarves. Lucifer recognized all this and parried that although there was no end to the conflicts between them, it was only a small part of their development. Raphael's face expressed an angry attitude. She said that there was no point in changing anything anymore and that it was a real shame. Angel said frankly that she thought Lucifer was the most talented person to look up to, but now on behalf of the supreme gods she had to kill him. Raphael applied the blow, but was extremely surprised at what had happened. The angel wondered why her opponent did not defend himself, as if his strength had left him. The severely wounded Mayusama replied that he had not come to her to fight. More precisely, he was trying to buy time to fulfill his plan. Angel asked in surprise what was wrong. She turned her attention to the orb that something had happened to. Angel looked at it and was greatly surprised at what had happened. On the sphere, which repeated the map of the world, a part of the continent had broken off. It was now visible that the continent had changed its shape. In indignation, Raphael threw the sphere and could not believe what had happened. Standing over Lucifer, she said that the power of the gods was in control of that part, and Lucifer explained that he had moved the peninsula with the remaining demons into the ocean, which bought time for himself and his kin. Raphael realized that the fallen angel was permitting all his strength for this, and he replied that the extinction of the demon race was inevitable. Mayusama then added that it would not happen unless by a miracle and his rebirth. Until then, he will split himself into 3,000 pieces and live inside each demon until all of his pieces are filled with demonic power. They may be destroyed, but together they will become a great power that will be enough to confront the gods. It would take a long time, over 1,000 years, but that would be the price of his sacrifice. Memories of the tower, the ship, and Roroa flashed before him. Lucifer was seconds away from death. His mind went blank and the last thing he thought of was praying for a beautiful world for his race. 1,000 years passed and the action shifted to the island where the rocket was launching from. In the center of the launch, Roroa watched the action while the others rejoiced at the successful and accurate launch. Rayana was experiencing pleasant emotions. Roroa explained that the rocket would act as a satellite. With its help, the world can be watched every day. It took 200 years to develop it beyond the angels. Aroa was all business and therefore asked what Rayana was doing here, to which the girl cheerfully replied that according to Mora, that time had come. Aroa was surprised and afterwards started crying. Rayana said not to do that, because they should be in high spirits when meeting the commander, whom the girl called Daddy, and Roroa understood that. After all, when Mayusama found himself in the new world, he would be overjoyed. The action moved to the soaring island of Valhalla, the forward headquarters that had been raised into the sky to avoid human attack and demon safety. Roroa and Rayana came into the office and apologized for being late. There were demons sitting at the round table, including Mora, who told them off, for which the girls apologized again. The head of the council named Drucus announced the start of the meeting and passed the floor to Mora. The girl said that she had received important information from the stars. It turned out that in half a day the Demon King would come to life, so we should be ready for this event. Everyone was overjoyed at the news. Rayana and Roroa hugged each other, and the rest of the group went about fulfilling Mora's words. Drucus took over the rest of the duties. The action moved into the mind of Lucifer, who felt awakened and regenerated. He opened his eyes and smelled grass and a bird beside him. A realization came, a calmness and joy that his kin had made it. The demonic power had become powerful enough in 1,000 years to revive their king in the modern world. Mayusama felt a pleasant breeze blowing. Suddenly, he noticed something in the sky. It was a huge dragon that was approaching. He carried his familiar friends on his back, which brought a smile to Lucifer's face. As soon as the dragon landed, the servants rushed to their commander and began to embrace him with tears of joy. The king had returned, and they had waited for it. Mayusama began stroking Rayana and noticed that the girls hadn't changed during this time. Afterward, he turned to a contented Mora, whose immortality potion had made all the difference. Rayana did not hold back her tears and said with all sincerity that she missed him and waited very patiently for his return, which the commander was touched by. Roroa reprimanded her sentimental friend who should not behave like that in front of the Demon King, to which the king himself replied that there was nothing wrong with it and she too could not hold back her emotions. This made Rayana cry even harder, which caused more indignation from Roroa and laughter from Mayusam. After hugging the girls, Lucifer turned to his kin enthusiastically, and they in turn began to cheer. Suddenly Drucus turned from behind, impressed by such uncharacteristic joy in his subjects, and this attracted Lucifer. He said that Drucus was still the same mighty dragon. He, in turn, replied that he had been waiting for the meeting for 1,000 years, so there was much to talk about when he returned to the palace. The action moved to the headquarters, where Drucus began to explain to the Reborn that during his absence the demons had organized their country on the island. There were about 200 demons to begin with, and the king asked what had become of the other races. Drucus explained that the country had multiracial status, which meant that everyone here treated each other with respect. Lucifer smiled and said he had noticed that himself. After Drucus led the king into the hall where his throne stood, but the king declared that he no longer needed the position. He relinquished his title and his guard's special unit was to be disbanded. This caused much surprise among the kin, and Lucifer explained that he was no longer needed in this world, for the demons were powerful enough without his help. Mayusama went on to explain that if he stayed in this position, everyone would be bound to him, so the weight of 1,000 years was enough. The girls were upset about what the commander had said. Lucifer stated that he and the others were now free and his future task would be to explore this world as a normal demon. He turned to Roroa, whom he was counting on. She replied that she had anticipated such an act, and then asked to follow her. The action moved to a laboratory where an artificial humanoid body of Mayusam was in an incubator, which was made from dragon cells. The commander complimented Roroa, to which she smugly replied that it was as befitted a servant. Hesitantly, the girl queried if he was really willing to reincarnate as a mere demon. Grinning, Lucifer said that he wanted to see the world differently, and once his consciousness left his body, the servants would no longer be bound to him. Mayusama turned to Drucus with determination. The demon warned that he was about to cast a spell that would move the king. Drucus stood between Lucifer's real body and the artificial one and began to conjure. Mayusam's consciousness shifted. He now became a rank demon and thanked and praised the servants for what they had done. Roroa said it pleased her to see the commander so happy. Lucifer checked that everything he needed had been put in his traveling bag, then took it and began to leave. Ryan tearfully asked why Lucifer was leaving them again and why he couldn't stay with them, to which he asked her not to tell him off. Finally, Mayusama looked at his subjects and thanked them for their loyalty. Then he said that they were no longer under his command and were free to decide their own happiness. That was his final order. Rayana began to blame Roroa for allowing the commander to leave so easily in his new body. and for surely putting him in danger. Oroa turned to her friend in bewilderment. Mora reflected on the fact that if he had no guards left, then he was really something to worry about. Oroa tried to reassure the girls by saying that such a body was one and only, for Drukus had spent many years creating it for a reason. The stamina and strength of this body is much higher than the original. Then the girl added that Mauyusam's soul would soon adapt, so it should now be monitored from a satellite. And in case of emergency he would use a golem. Rayana was afraid of the commander's anger if she found out about the surveillance, and Roroa confirmed those fears. Drukus ironically commented that Roroa was prepared in advance for such a moment, and afterward touched on disbanding. He admitted that although it was his idea, he intended to create a new one, so the girls had an opportunity. Mora said that would be a good idea. Roroa echoed the commander's words about living on their own. Rayana was happy and said that they were all thinking in the same direction, so they would continue to serve the king. The girls united again and praised Lucifer. Lucifer was walking down the path leading into the city. He marveled at how much technological progress had advanced in 1,000 years. The hero was studying the operation of the Roroa Phone 7 cell phone, the first generation of which could be used solely for communication. But now the gadget had more functions. Lucifer searched for a navigation app, and finally finding one, began plotting a route to the nearest city. Small markers showed reviews of the city's establishments. One of these in the form of Rayana suggested a restaurant that had excellent meat. Mauyusama realized that his servants had been there more than once, and another marker in the form of Roroa spoke of the wide menu and the hospitality of the staff at another restaurant, which piqued the hero's interest. Lucifer's new phone was causing him genuine surprise. Then he saw a directory of the modern world authored by Drukus, and the hero gasped at this thoughtfulness. Mausuma opened the contact book and saw the numbers for Drukus, Roroa, Rayana, and Mora. He concluded that he shouldn't contact anyone yet, since they had only recently seen each other. But he shouldn't delete his contacts either. The scorching sun caught up with Lucifer, but he was surprised at how quickly his strength was spent, even though he had been walking for only 2 hours. He saw a big tree. He came up with the idea to take a break, use the aqua ball spell and drink some water. The liquid filled his mouth. Relief came, but Lucifer realized that there was far less power and mana in this body than in his native body. He drew the depressing conclusion that he was now destined to live with that fact. But suddenly Mauyusama noticed something strange. He felt a surge of strength and realized what was wrong. The adaptation process was slowly progressing, and now the guy could heal quickly. Determination appeared, and Mauyusama walked faster. Finally, the boundaries of the city were reached. Now he was able to keep magic under control better, which meant that the more often he used it, the more successfully he could use it in any situation. He walked into the street of the city and was surprised. He immediately liked the beauty of this place, although 1,000 years ago he wouldn't have been able to say that. Suddenly he saw a demon and a human having a friendly conversation about something. This reassured Lucifer, for humans had never hated demons, nor had they ever hated humans. It was just that the gods had decided to choose them. Mauyusama was glad of this fact, but remembered that he was going somewhere. Suddenly, the hero's stomach rumbled. This gave him the idea to go to some restaurant, and he began to look for a route. Eventually, with the help of maps, he came to an establishment called Fox's Lunch. Opening the door to the packed room, he was greeted and invited to take whatever seat he wanted. Lucifer took in the ambience, and although the restaurant looked old, it still felt cozy due to its neatness and liveliness. The guy opened the menu and noticed that the text was written in the demonic language, the vocabulary of which was replenished with a large number of new words. The hero doubted the choice, because everything looked delicious, as suddenly a waitress approached him with readiness to take the visitor's order. It was a pretty girl with ears and a tail. The guy asked if they served appetizers, to which the waitress replied in the affirmative and added that today there was chef's pork and seasonal fruit wine. She began to explain that the dish was made from a rare type of pork called turinboa, and the drink had a wonderful smell of fruit from the Ottoman tree. The girl assured him that the food was of the best quality. The pigs had been brought from the dungeon just yesterday, and Mauyusama trusted her. All that remained was to wait for the preparation. The waitress' words about the dungeon piqued the boy's interest. That's when he noticed that the girl was approached by the name Kia with a willingness to order, to which she instantly responded. The waitress skillfully and quickly did her job, serving all the customers. Mauyusama wondered how the girl managed to manage alone. Kia was apologizing to a customer she hadn't had a chance to serve yet, while the man at the next table was determined to do something obscene. Suddenly, he swung his hand to slap the girl, but she managed to dodge and hand over her order, which impressed Lucifer. From all this, the guy concluded that she's an integral part of the restaurant and it can't exist without her, and her expression makes the food here even tastier. Lucifer agreed with the review that this is a great place, as suddenly something strange started happening to him. While the other customers were having a great time, the guy started something unusual. He was experiencing a feeling that he hadn't felt in a long time, and that foreshadowed important events. This feeling was similar to the one he experienced when he met the servant girls, a creature close to him. But it was not true, for Lucifer could no longer make contracts. At that moment his order was brought to him. Pork from the chef in a shallow plate, fruit wine in a decanter, and cutlery. The appearance of it all delighted Mausama, and the girl politely advised him to start eating before it got cold. The boy cut off a piece of meat, took a bite and began chewing while drinking. It was very tasty. The soft and juicy texture of the meat along with the flavorful wine created a real delight and enjoyment. Mausama replied that he had never felt such joy in eating before. Suddenly the boy realized the most important thing. He had to figure out how much money he had with him, because it would be a shame not to be able to pay. Mausama looked into the bag and realized that Raphaela had put in more than enough money. At that moment, the front door opened and several bears came in, dressed in suits and serious. One of them announced that this was the rogues' establishment they had come for, and another suddenly demanded that the owner pay as he should. This caught Mausama's attention and even scared him a little. Kia began to excitedly ask if it was okay for the entrants to come in the evening after business hours with their demand, to which one bear sternly replied that only they could ask. While the other visitors were watching, the main one showed the contract that spelled out the deadline for the room, and it was coming up today. Mausama said, "Don't these debt collectors think too much of themselves?" The man at the next table replied that they did, and they were not just after the money, but the premises themselves. He began to tell the backstory that the owner of these lands adored Kia's father's food, and as a result he was exempted from local taxes on the condition that he would cook for the owner until the last day of his life. But the owner of the place died, and the owner's son did not continue to follow the arrangement. So today they came again to threaten Kija, who had the choice to pay or leave the restaurant. Slicing another piece of meat, Mausama spoke harshly about the collectors. He assumed that their target was Kia herself, but still didn't understand why she couldn't just go elsewhere where she would be willingly accepted with her skills. To which the man replied that Mausama was missing the main point of the whole conflict. For Kia, this place had been home since the first day she was born, and time kept passing. The chief bear threatened that she had little time to make a decision, because it was unacceptable to stall in front of a young master. However, the collector offered another way of payment besides money, because the girl could pay with her body, after which he said emphatically that she should not be obstinate for her own good. He added on his own behalf that the appearance of the place spoiled the pleasant impression of the neighborhood, and the frightened Kia tried to object that it was her land. Having used up the last drop of patience, one of the bears rudely suggested setting fire to the restaurant, to which the waitress begged pitifully not to go on, for she understood. Falling to her knees, she begged for all these threats to stop. With smugness, the chief bear asked ironically what Kia might not like, and afterwards clarified what path of solution she had chosen. The girl began to sob with fear and hesitantly, but said that she agreed to all the conditions, only if the collectors would not do anything to the establishment. The chief bear was about to take the girl to a place where she could pay up when suddenly Mausama stepped in for her. He told her to go away, to which he replied that he had spoiled the mood. The other bear laughed, because of the threat Mausama could pose to them, but the main bear appreciated the act, saying that such heroism is not often seen nowadays. He took off his glasses and said that he had crossed paths with such people before. The chief collector said convincingly that it would be enough for him to swing, and Mausama would already be on his knees in humiliation. The fight began, and the bears began to attack. Mausama was determined. Suddenly he grabbed the head collector and threw him back. With a loud thud, the bears fell like skittles after a balloon toss. It was Mausama's turn to attack. He took a running start and pounced on the offending bears. Then he delivered a powerful blow to the head. It was so powerful that the bears flew away from him. This was not his main technique, but he was able to use it successfully not because of his training, but because the power came from his soul. The bears were surprised at such power of a simple guy. Standing up, the main bear began to justify that he was acting strictly within the signed contract, so Mausama's act was illegal. When the hero took the paper in his hands, the collector hastily said that it was only a copy, so its destruction would not change anything. Suddenly Mausam said that he could reimburse all the losses. He added that Kija was the head of the establishment and rightfully so. Mayusama tossed a coin into the bear's paws and told him to let the bear think it was even. The collector couldn't believe his eyes as he held Lucifer's coin in his hands. That meant it equaled 1 million gold coins. The chief bear objected that the payment was much more than the contract required, and because of the guy's generosity he wanted to know his name, to which he was asked to leave the room. The chief collector foreshadowed that Mayusama would become great and withdrew. Meanwhile, the lad went back to his meal, continuing to enjoy his food in the absence of those bears. But he was approached. It was Kia, who didn't understand how she deserved this outcome of the event. Mayusam's answer was modest and simple. The collectors were preventing him from eating, but that didn't answer the waitress' question as to why he gave them as much as 1 million. Kia asked if it was the Lord and her savior, to which she received a negative answer. Besides, that coin was all the guy could pay with, and that angered the girl. Mayusama realized that he had completely forgotten to give money to repair the restaurant, as he was suddenly asked not to worry about it. The patrons volunteered to take on the job. The guy realized again that the wonderful thing about this place was not only the food, but also the people. Kia suddenly offered to repay the savior for his deed. She explained how important it was to her to keep this place safe, so she was willing to do anything Mayusama asked. The guy noticed that the girl's body looked nice and attractive, and the blush on her cheeks only emphasized it, but he wanted to assure the girl that no payment was needed. Suddenly Mayusama realized that the blood in his body had rushed to a place he hadn't expected. He was surprised that a woman's body could attract him so much. The guy repeated that no payback was required, which Kia disagreed with, at which point he changed his mind and thought of something. Mayusama asked if Kia would mind if she rented him one of the rooms. Besides, the waitress would make him a real meal. A fire lit up in the girl's eyes. She agreed and gave her father's room to Mayusama, after which the lovely creature returned to her routine. The hero thought over the plan of further actions. He found a room for a night's stay, but it remained to find a way to earn money, because you can't live for free. Meanwhile, the others were discussing what had happened. They noted Lucifer's power, with which he must have traveled more than one dungeon. Mayusama overheard this and realized the key to his problem, because that rare pork was from the dungeons. He wondered if he would be able to make good money from hunting, but decided to clarify that after he had enjoyed his lunch to the fullest. Foxdale was being followed by a camera. It was showing the moment the fight started in the restaurant. Through it, Roroa and Rayana were watching Lucifer from the center of the headquarters, worried about the possible consequences. While Roroa was making assumptions about the commander's new body, Rayana was rooting for the guy to win. Just as suddenly, Roroa opened the button cover to start the emergency action protocol. She almost pressed it. Suddenly, her intention was interrupted by Rayana. Lucifer managed to win without any help. The girls breathed a sigh of relief, for all was well. Roroa resented the insolence of those bears and said that this button was a great danger. Rayana wondered how Lucifer had gotten such power and new equipment, to which Roroa replied that he had acquired it all in a dream from someone whose part was in him. And when he woke up, he didn't realize that he had gained new knowledge and experience. It occurred to Rayana that Lucifer had gotten all of this from 3,100,000 people, and therefore he could use it all, but Roroa was quick to point out that this could have consequences. Although his body was powerful, but he used all of his power only for defense. Rayana noticed that it wasn't a bad start either. The girl was pleased that their commander was now even stronger than before. Roroa, however, cautioned that they should not stop tracking yet. After all, Lucifer's body was still weak. Rayana realized why her friend was watching him every second and suggested that she take a break. She didn't agree, as she was doing research, and then turned to Aurora's virtual assistant. She replied to Roroa that she was ready to listen to her request. The girl asked her to write down all the information about Lucifer by tomorrow and continue to monitor his movements and contact the city's news center in case of emergencies. And for today, it was necessary to make an organized backup of the data by 5 main points. And the virtual assistant obeyed. Roroa explained to her friend that it was Aurora's artificial intelligence that would help keep an eye on Lucifer and react quickly in any situation, while Rayana expressed her worries for the commander, who made even happier every time he appeared. The girl turned to Roroa again. She asked what she would do with her real body and hoped it wasn't experiments. Roroa answered that it was her duty to study Lucifer's body, for in it lay the answer to the question of how to fight angels. Besides, if she could find the coveted mechanism, it would be possible to connect it to the real body, and Rayana guessed that then the commander would become invincible. Roroa said that that was why Lucifer had left her his body, which she watched constantly. The liquid in the incubator drained away. Roroa hugged the body and said that this form was a work of art, and the more she hugged it, the more her soul sang, which was reflected on her face. Rihanna felt the injustice and wanted to hug Lucifer's body too. The girls enjoyed the form of their commander. The action moved to the hotel where Mayusama was now settled. He took a hot bath, which worked great for him. He realized that he had never done this before, except for bathing in hot springs with werewolves. But it was time for the next important part of the routine. It was time to savor a special meal from Kia. Mayusama began to eat and drink. He felt how perfectly the hot meat and the cold wine went together. The hero remarked how wonderful the meat from the dungeon was after all, the thought of which never left him, as suddenly footsteps were heard from behind. It was Kia in her underwear. She asked if her guest enjoyed such a treat. While the guy marveled at her appearance, she timidly inquired if Mayusama could fix the broken bathtub with his spells, since repairing it would be expensive and he's an all-powerful superhero. Shyly, the boy replied that he could, but wanted to add some sort of objection. Kia came to her senses and became ashamed. Immediately, she pitifully began to apologize for what happened. It was unintentional on her part, but what can you do when you're used to living alone? Putting on a sweater, the girl confessed that the presence of the guest pushed her to remember her father. After all, Mayusama is similar in some ways. That's why Kia behaved in such a way. And the guy realized everything. The girl joined the hero at the table. While Mayusama was comprehending the awkwardness, Kia turned to him. She thanked her savior again for being a hero. This place was the essence of Kia's life, and with his help it was possible not to lose that value. The girl assured the guy that she wouldn't forget his deed, and as a thank you she wanted to cook for him, to which Mayusama shyly uttered words of gratitude. Kia promised that she would gradually repay the debt with money, but the hero interrupted her, reminding her that she shouldn't worry about it. Suddenly, he clarified that Kia's family still had a mother, and it was unclear what had happened to her. The girl anxiously said that she had been hospitalized, and that alerted Mayusama. Kia explained that her mom was in the hospital all the time due to a terminal illness, so the girl was always alone. Mayusama asked if the hostess had thought about raising the price tag, because it would do her good considering the workload. Kia replied that the thought had crossed her mind after her mother had been in the hospital. However, it went against her father's philosophy that the restaurant should feed everyone well, so raising prices would disappoint him. Afterwards, Kia said that she was both keeping up with her duties and the customers were wonderful, and explained that despite the large amount of debt, getting rich was not in her priorities. Mayusama realized his tactlessness, but the girl reacted calmly, and afterwards said dishearteningly that only a special medicine, not money, would be able to help her mom. And it turns out it was in a dungeon. Mayusama realized everything. Kia had arrogantly declared that that was where the thing that would cure his mother was. The boy drew attention to himself by asking for more information about the dungeon. Kia said that it was inhabited by creatures that they were willing to pay a lot of money for, but it was far away. Mayusama wondered how magical beasts could be on the peninsula. Then Kia mentioned that she wanted to go there for a while, and offered her savior to join her. The boy asked permission, to which he received an approving reply. Kia assured him that there was no need to worry about danger, as she had been a born hunter for 10 years now. But now it was time to go to bed, as tomorrow heralded new challenges. The next morning came and the pair packed up for their hike. Kia asked if Mayusama had any complaints about the clothes, to which he thanked her for helping him pack and promised to be careful with the clothes he had given out. But the girl had forgotten to put something else in. It was lunch for Mayusama. He appreciated the care and was already anticipating the pleasure of the meal, which made the girl a little worried. Kia explained her gift by saying that Mayusama needed a lot of energy to carry things, for which he thanked his new friend once again. Soon the boy noticed something in front of him that alerted him. It was a monument that looked very much like him. As expected, it was a statue of Lucifer, the demon king who spiritually aided the hunters. Mayusama asked why it existed and was erected in many cities, to which he received the answer that in this way a deep respect was shown to Lucifer. The boy was perplexed, for the demon king was a great celebrity, which caused great surprise to Kia, who said that it is so and every soul knows about him. The girl said reproachfully that Mayusama had the honor of bearing the same name with him, while he himself was not aware of the greatness of his person. Then Kia began to tell that long ago the Demon King had done a noble deed, rescuing his kin from the evil hands of angels and humans, causing many to name their children in his honor. The monument itself was built by soldiers of the royal army. Statues were placed almost in all parts of the city, which was not surprising, and Kia, meanwhile, drew attention to herself. The girl advised to ask her friend about the history of the greatest, and Mayusama agreed to listen to the story. The girl was only too glad and said that there were many illustrated books and plays about Lucifer. They told about how the Demon King was warlike, attractive and loving. Mayusama was ashamed of such excessive popularity. Kia asked the boy's opinion, to which he now replied that Lucifer was really incredible. Mayusama realized that Kia knew enough about the king, to which the girl replied that it couldn't be otherwise, since he was a god. Kia offered to take a better look at the statue. She admired it. Mayusama noticed how enthusiastic and in love the girl looked at the chiseled stone. Her eyes were brimming with a loving feeling. Mayusama wondered if that was the reason she was being nice to him. Just as suddenly, Kia stared at the guy, then at the statue. It was Mayusama, and this was the Demon King. And Kia realized that they were like two peas in a pod, which made Mayusama want to reveal his cards. But the girl interrupted him by saying that the Demon King was much better in comparison. After which Kia mentioned whether Mr. Lucifer knew that according to legend, the Demon King would be reborn after 1,000 years. And after all, that time had already passed and the king still hadn't appeared in public. The girl admitted that she really wanted to see him because of his power and turned to ask what Mayusama thought. But he was not in the place. He had gone farther away and answered ambiguously. And now it was time to set off. And the pair headed swiftly along the route, the end point of which was the dungeon. The pair came to a tower, the top of which was pointing high into the sky. Kia said they had made it, and Mayusama's memories came flooding back. It was the same tower in the same place as it had been 1,000 years ago. Kia began to explain that this tower was punitive, and it generated an endless number of monsters whose purpose was to exterminate the demon race as intended by the high gods. However, the tower had become separated from the great continent, and now it was serving the demons. Mayusama clarified if it was because of the fact that there were rewards for monsters, and Kia answered in the affirmative. Kia showed a statuette that displayed the amount of reward for the difficulty of the monster. It wasn't even 1,000 years ago, but with the addition of rewards, both going to monsters and the tower had become a familiar part of the routine. Mayusama asked if the angels' prizing of demons was so strong that the latter had created such deadly weapons. Kia replied that the angels were arrogant towards the failing demons, which was the reason why they had created this tower. The boy wanted to summarize the discussion with words about how deities and angels were arrogant after all, as Kia interrupted him by pointing to the entrance of the building. There was a bazaar unfolding close to the tower. Mayusama realized how the demon race was growing stronger and becoming superior. With the help of monster rewards, prosperity was going even better, which was why a city of this size was able to appear. The pair walked through the bazaar. Mayusama appreciated the liveliness of the place, and Kia explained that everything here was full of goods of various necessities. The girl added that there was also a store selling ready-made awards, and the boy was still surprised by people's interest in trading. Suddenly Kia remembered that she was going to buy something, and Mayusama promised to wait. From the shop, an elderly shopkeeper greeted Kia and remarked on the girl's beauty. Kia thanked her for the compliment and asked for buns. And while the shopkeeper was looking for them, she noticed Mayusama, whom she was seeing for the first time. The woman teasingly asked if he was Kia's new boyfriend, to which Kia was very embarrassed. The girl explained that he was just a regular guest who had taken up residence in the guest house. The woman went on to say in an ironic tone that the guy looked very cute, and Kia asked not to be embarrassed. Mayusama was munching on a bun and with his mouth full asked the girl if something was wrong, to which she only sullenly demanded to continue on her way. The hero suggested that she might not be feeling well. Finally, the entrance to the tower was reached. Kia stepped forward, inside the portal, and beckoned her companion to follow. Slipping his hand through the portal, Mayusama felt the water. After that, the hero began to move, and so he found himself in a clearing, where his companion was already waiting for him. Kia explained that this was only the first floor, and each one would have a different landscape. The pair met up with the other bounty seekers who greeted them. Mayusama asked how often people came here, to which he received the answer that every day, and at every turn. The boy assumed that the pandemonium at the portal was because the entrance itself was the safest area, but that meant that there was serious competition for the rewards here. Kia confirmed this and explained why she had decided to choose a place farther away. The pair had traveled far enough that it was possible to get lost, but Kia had cleverly retrieved her father's compass, which was impossible to get lost with. In addition, the girl had an excellent sense of direction in this area, so Mayusama could safely rely on her. Kia warned Mr. Lucifer to be on his guard. The monsters here could often sit in ambush. Mayusama noticed how abruptly the girl changed from good-natured and sweet-natured to a savvy hunter. He noticed that the navigator on his phone had updated, which meant that Roroa had anticipated Lucifer's possible trip to the backstage. And despite her calculating demeanor, the girl was always worried about her king's life. Mao-Usama respected that. But in the meantime, Kia was advancing, and he shouldn't have lost sight of her. Suddenly and abruptly, the girl admonished the hero to stay focused, and he apologized. Kia smelled the scent of the monster that was somewhere nearby. Concentration was needed. Mao-Usama looked at it with surprise. He saw how his companion began to accumulate mana to raise her power level. This caused him to respect her. Just as suddenly, a monster appeared nearby. It was a huge boar with tusks, whose mood was clearly unfriendly. Mao-Usama's phone gave out the information that it was a boar horn that had low intelligence, thick skin, powerful horns, and whose meat had a great flavor. The boar horn lunged at the pair. Mao-Usama drew Kiyu's attention to it, to which she reacted calmly. The girl drew her blades and asked simply to observe her actions. The confrontation between the huntress and the boar horn had begun. Mao-Usama shouted for the Ta not to go directly at the attacking enemy. Kia put out one of her blades and the monster was already very close. Their gazes, calculating and furious, crossed. Suddenly, Kia pushed herself off the ground and flew into the air, and in doing so, she surprised the boy. Bringing her blade into the air, Kia swiftly flew downwards, straight at her opponent. The boarhorn tried to strike with a bite, but the huntress deftly dodged. Kia struck the fatal blow and jumped further away. Mao-Usama was amazed at her technique, and the girl's face once again showed her usual smile. The boy expressed his appreciation of the girl's strength, to which she replied smugly that this was what an experienced hunter should be like. Mao-Usama wondered what was to be done with the slain monster. Suddenly, the corpse of the Cabanarog began to transform, exuding a glow. The monster turned into a bounty bag, which Kia picked up. The guy asked if the meat was tasty, to which he received an affirmative. Besides, for 3 kilograms of meat in the bazaar would give 15,000 bar. The calculations showed that it was much more profitable to sell meat than bread, for example. Mao-Usama asked how profitable it was to work as a hunter, to which Kia replied that from hunting and renting out rooms she had 50,000 bar, and in addition she could sell the skin and horns, so the revenue was excellent. The boar horn made enough different tasty dishes, one of which the boy had already eaten yesterday. Meanwhile, Kija took out a sack of lunch. The heroes took a break and began to eat. Mao-Usama once again praised the girl's cooking. The boy said that he was surprised that the monsters were so powerful at only level 1. To which Kia confirmed that the level of a floor determined the power of the monsters on it, and many were different from each other in techniques and weapons. To go higher and higher you had to literally live in the tower, so Kia didn't think it was a reasonable idea for her. Because of this, she didn't go any higher, where she could earn much more money to treat her mother, though the desire was there. Mao-Usama sipped his drink. Afterward, he asked what monster needed to be defeated in order for the all-healing herbs to fall from it. To which Kia gave the creepy answer that those monsters lived on the 5th floor, and the wind rippled the grass. Mao-Usama thought for a moment, but Kia interrupted his thoughts by saying that the more experienced hunters had already killed all the monsters on that floor. The girl needed to improve her skills and increase her strength. Mao-Usama thought that he could make this task easier with the help of servants and demonic technology, but he couldn't afford it right now. He decided that he could do it with the strength he had, and thanked Kia for the food. Suddenly the boy said he had a thought. He would do his companion a favor and help her to get some much needed herbs, and it made her very happy. Mao-Usama explained that the stories of the travelers had awakened in him a desire for adventure, and Kia appreciated it. But the girl cautioned her companion not to jump to conclusions about the safety of the place. Mao-Usama said he understood that, and thought of how this place stirred his soul, as if it awakened memories. And the sword in its scabbard made him want to pick it up and use it for its intended purpose. Mao-Usama looked at Kia and felt a strange surge of confidence on top of everything else. The guy warned his companion to make sure that the next monster was on his account, and intuition was telling him to defeat the enemy. Mao-Usama's eyes lit a fire and he said that he wouldn't let Kia down, so she could trust him with her life. Kia clarified if her companion would definitely be able to handle it, to which he answered in the affirmative, although he was a bit worried about it. The girl suggested finding a monster that wasn't very strong, but then the hero wouldn't know what he was really capable of doing. Mao-Usama's phone vibrated, to which he was surprised, as Kia suddenly called out warningly. Both of them had to dodge the blow. The phone was knocked out of Mao-Usama's hands. Kia inquired about his companion's condition. He replied that he was fine, but meanwhile, an aggressive hare appeared in front of the hero's eyes. It was a rare monster in the form of a huge hare, the main ability of which was powerful hind legs, with which it could tear down even mountains. Kia immediately decided to take on the monster and advised her companion to take cover, which he disagreed with. Mayusama clearly said that he would fight now, and the companion got worried. The girl just had to watch. Kia got over herself and accepted it. She only wished to be careful, and Lucifer rushed into the fray. Face to face, the opponents faced each other. The Pinay hare was very fast in its attack, and this caused Mayusama to be apprehensive. The monster attacked so fast that the boy had no chance to counterattack. Mayusama kept falling short, and the risk of being hit was high. Suddenly, Kia cried out. At the very last moment, Lucifer blocked the monster's strike. The hare's attacks continued unabated. Lucifer's body reacted to the attack itself, because it was impossible to defend every split second. But even so, the guy couldn't keep up with the attacks. Did that mean he had to block unconsciously? Kia kept watching this, and her heart bled. She realized that the hare was outmatched, and the urge to break her promise of non-interference grew stronger and stronger. The girl reached for her blade to engage in battle. Suddenly, Kija saw Mr. Lucifer starting to make it. More and more agilely, the hero began to deal with the attacks. The Pinay hare was perplexed and angered when he saw what was happening. Mayusama began to understand the algorithm of the enemy's actions, but his size was still surprising. Finally, the demon successfully struck the monster's leg. It bled, and the pinafore hare was surprised at his injury. It made him even angrier. The monster soared into the sky and landed back, causing powerful waves on the ground. Lucifer understood his opponent's mindset. The battle was dragging on, and it needed to be summarized. Mayusama needed to make a decisive attack. He stood up to attack. Suddenly, the monster struck from behind. The boy blocked the attack just in time. But the pinafore hare was so strong that the veins in the hero's arms began to bleed. Lucifer held the blow, which was very difficult. With his last strength, he made a counterattack. The sword plunged into the monster's paw. With a sharp movement, Mayusama pierced his opponent. The Pinay hare was badly wounded. His eye was bleeding and anger was visible. But Lucifer was in a winning position. The guy was left to finish off his opponent with magic. A spell ripped from his hands. Bullets of dark flame were directed towards the monster, followed by explosions. The enemy was defeated. A worried Kia ran up immediately, but the guy was fine. Suddenly, the girl noticed Mayusama's hands. They were bleeding, and it frightened the girl. She immediately insisted on returning to the city. But Lucifer smugly said that the wounds were not serious, and then he began to heal himself. As the wounds healed, Mayusama said that he had spent too much mana, so it would be good to practice. Suddenly, he turned his attention to Kia, whose face expressed surprise. Kia admired Mr. Lucifer's awesomeness. After all, he possessed the rare magic of healing clerics. To which the guy replied that anyone could master it, while the church could annex it for their own purposes. Kia said that the owners of such magic could expect better rewards. Mayusama asked if his partner was injured, to which she replied that she was slightly injured. The guy applied regeneration on Kia, and told her to make sure that any monster who dared to attack the beautiful girl would be painfully killed. Kia was thankful for the healings, and Mayusama replied that there was no need for special thanks, as it was a common spell. The partner examined the bounty that fell from the monster and happily said that there was a lot to be gained for its tail. Mayusama was happy about that. Lucifer clarified if his partner realized its power, and her face once again reflected admiration. Kia folded the reward into her backpack. Suddenly, Kia said that it shouldn't be like that, causing her partner to be perplexed. The girl asked why the guy didn't fight at full strength at the beginning of the battle, since he was so powerful. Mayusama tried to object, but Kia interrupted him, saying that she had watched the battle, and the guy's tactics at the beginning and the end were very different. Lucifer shyly said it was a sudden increase in strength, which only caused more bewilderment. Kia saw it as a bad joke. With a fake laugh, Mayusama said it wasn't a joke at all. Kia summed it up by saying that it was the first time for her partner anyway. Kia had packed her backpack and promised to pass on all of her combat experience, and now needed to get back. She held out her hand. Mayusama offered his hand and said contentedly that he was looking forward to it. They looked at each other with a friendly feeling. Meanwhile, the action moved to the soaring castle of Valhalla, the headquarters. Rayana and Roroa continued to watch their commander. Rayana rejoiced unbridled in his victory. Roroa was in solidarity. Lucifer doubted the power of this body, and there was no escaping the fear of his anger if he knew he was being watched. But Roroa was persuasive in telling him not to doubt it. Meanwhile, Mora was happily cuddling with the commander's real body, and Roroa told her to stop. Mora asked if it was too selfish to hide the Demon King's body in this place. Aurora replied unequivocally that her main concern was to keep his body in shape. Rayana asked if they hadn't hugged Lucifer's body yesterday, causing Roroa's embarrassment and Mora's chuckle. Aurora said that the commander's new girlfriend is pretty strong, but that strength is only strong enough to reach the 4th floor. An emotional Rayana and a placated Mora took notice of this. Aurora began to think logically that if serious difficulties awaited Mayusama and Kia on the 5th floor, and the necessary herbs were only on the 6th floor, then something had to be done. The couple would definitely need help. These words were instantly responded to by Rayana, who volunteered to solve the problem. Aurora didn't resist, as she realized that she wouldn't be much help, and Rayana asked what disguise she should use. Aurora warned that it wouldn't help much, as the commander could sense their presence. Mora entered the dialogue and had an idea. They needed to use the soul-splitting spell, that's why they needed it. A petal appeared in Mora's hands and the other girls noticed it. The enchantress said that she didn't have the world tree seed right now, however this leaf would also suffice. According to her calculations, everything should have worked out, though not perfectly, as with the king's body. The girls noticed the pleading look in Rayana's eyes. She said pitifully that she hadn't stopped looking like a child in 1,000 years, so she wanted an adult body like Mora's. And while Rayana could choose, she wanted a body like that, because the immortality apple stopped the aging process. But Aurora resisted because she hadn't eaten the apple. She imagined Rayana as an adult and then reacted with indignation. Her clear answer was no, and that had already angered Rayana. A small argument ensued between the girls, which Mora watched with amusement. She said happily that after the king's awakening everything had changed in Valhalla. People were filled with enthusiasm for the king and they lit up the castle even when they weren't here. Lucifer was beautiful and incredible in that way. The action returned to the couple discussing the success of today's hunt. While Kia praised her partner for his efforts, he said it was about time to return. Mayusama clarified if the girl really wanted to reopen the restaurant this week after the exhausting adventure, to which she smugly replied that it wasn't required and she could handle it. Kia suggested lunch since she was hungry. The girl noticed something. She was just thinking about something confused, but Moasuma didn't understand the phrase. The action moved to Kija's guest house. She happily offered the boy a special fish dish. The girl decided to cook fish, as there was only meat lately. Mayusama was eager to join in, but he needed to unpack first and the girl thanked him for that. Kia began to cut up the fish. Mayusama unpacked the backpack. Soon he was done. The guy realized how light the unfilled backpacks were, but there was the question of what to do with so much meat. He figured that the proceeds for just 3 days amounted to 20,000. Kija was happy about it, because it was the first time for her. Mayusama said that next time they would go for the healing herbs, to which Kija warned that they would not be able to manage without people and lodging. The guy asked if the girl had only gone alone before, to which she replied that she could leave the restaurant for a maximum of 3 days, making it almost impossible to find partners. She also added that she was embarrassed to talk to and ask for help from strange men, and Mayusama understood that, so he asked if she would feel comfortable if he went with her. The girl answered unequivocally and approvingly. Lucifer grinned and took that as a good sign, and in the meantime the food had already been prepared. The table was set with gastronomic delights in the form of stewed and fried fish, and it all looked very appetizing. The couple proceeded to eat. Mayusama praised the girl's cooking skills, to which she replied that it was all due to her father's strictness in teaching her. Mayusama asked how Kai managed to do it all alone, and she said that she could not do it alone, but that her uncle and cousin were there to help her. The boy had seen them before, but he still didn't understand how 3 people could manage a place that was in great demand. Kia said his mom was helping out too. Mayusama asked if they should find new employees, to which the girl replied that there wasn't enough money for that. And the guy continued to not understand why the girl wouldn't raise the prices even slightly. Annoyed, Kia said that her father's moral admonition to make the food affordable and tasty for every customer would not allow her to do so, and afterwards said smugly that she could handle everything, so there should be no cause for concern. Mayusama accepted her words, but still the thought of avoiding the problem as well as the potential of the establishment did not leave him. He looked up and thanked the hostess for the food as he suddenly saw something surprisingly. Kia had fallen asleep. Mayusama again realized the degree to which the girl was trying and gently carried her to bed. He wished her a good night, though the girl had been sound asleep for quite some time now. The next morning came, and the sun's rays flooded the roof of the guest house with their light. In the backyard, two men were unloading the goods they had brought. One of them called Taka's name and told him that the last barrel was left, which he took note of, calling the man Papa. A muscular man entered the still unfilled guest room and asked if the fire was ready. But to his surprise, he didn't see Kija, just a guy. As he was mopping the floor, he noticed the man and asked if he was Kia's uncle. Mayusama said hello to the uncle named Masa. The uncle realized that this was the same Lucifer who looked a lot like his older brother, and the guy said that Kia thought so too. Masa clarified if Kia had gone to check on his mom, and Mayusama confirmed it. Uncle voiced his thoughts in a low voice that the unloading work needed to be completed, when suddenly Mayusama offered his help. Masa insisted that they should take a break after yesterday's hike, to which Lucifer arrogantly replied that it wasn't required and asked to be shown what needed to be done. Uncle exclaimed happily that he was never short of helpers, and asked Taka to show the volunteer what needed to be done. The cousin's response was short and dry. He took note of the request and introduced himself to Lucifer. Work processes began in the warehouse and kitchen. Lucifer was peeling vegetables when Taka approached him, calling him old master. This embarrassed Mayusama, for his body looked 20 years old, even though his real age was over 1,000 years old. Taka advised him to peel more carefully, otherwise you could cut off the most delicious part of it. Lucifer sighed that he was already being handed out advice, even though he was just getting started. After a while, Mayusama asked if his assistant had finished cutting the horned rabbit meat, to which he replied in the affirmative. Taka asked if it was true that Kia and Lucifer were in the stasis. Mayusama answered in the affirmative. Suddenly, the cousin asked if he was being helpful or just in the way. He then chuckled at the fact that Kia continued to think well of his new friend, at which point Mayusama shrieked from cutting himself. Lucifer regenerated, and his cousin approached him asking if he was finished. The boy annoyedly said that he had failed once again. The father scolded his son for not being able to teach Lucifer how to do things right. Taka watched as Mayusama once again tried to peel the vegetables. Afterward, he confessed that he too would like to go to the tower with Kija. Taka confessed that he was weaker than Kija. He had never been able to win his sister. He scolded himself. Lucifer heard those words. He said that everyone can complain, but does his cousin have the inner strength not to give up? He thought about it and decided he didn't want to give up so easily. Meanwhile, Mayusama finished peeling the vegetables. The cousin appreciated it as a worthy labor and was approached by his father. Masa tasked the two boys to get the wine, and they went to fulfill the errand. Lucifer turned to Taka, who responded. The boys were pulling a cart, tightly packed with wine secured on it. Mayusama asked why such a large quantity, to which he replied that it was cheaper in bulk. Lucifer pushed the cart with eagerness, saying to himself, "It's a lot of wine." As the cart rolled slowly down the street under the pressure of the boys, Mayusama noticed a restaurant on the road. He hinted that their prices were low compared to others, to which Taka replied in the affirmative and added that it had been that way since it had opened. The cousin said that Kia had stayed true to her father's words, but the heavy workload had taken a toll on her health, after which he said loudly that he was concerned about it. That's when he noticed Lucifer's smirk, which made him angry. Taka started to justify that his concern was not due to possible love feelings. After all, they had been good friends since childhood, to which Mayusama remarked that he never accused him of anything like that. The boys reached a steep rise in elevation. Taka, recovering his breath, suggested asking for help, to which Lucifer replied that he could lift the cart without help. His cousin doubted this, as he didn't see Lucifer as a strong man. Mayusama took hold of the cart, and Taka watched. Sweat pouring down his face, he began to push the load. Suddenly, the cart rolled forward, much to Taka's surprise. The cousin refused his premature judgment, to which Lucifer remarked that the frequent work as a loader could be a great way to get pumped up. That's why Kija spoke well of his brother. Taka once again thanked Lucifer from the bottom of his heart for the lesson he had taught those collectors. That brought a smile to the boy's face. Lucifer replied that it was no big deal, because he did it because he adored Foxy lunch, and Taka agreed with that. When the guys got back from town, Kia was already at the guest house and Masa thanked them for their work. Taka and Lucifer saw the girls return, and were slightly not expecting it. Kia started to ask Mayusama how he liked his new acquaintances, to which he replied positively, at which time their attention was drawn to Masa, who demanded that they already take their seats at the dining table. Kia had a dish in front of her and she explained that it was her uncle's specialty soup. But suddenly she wondered why the pieces of vegetables were too small. Taka admitted that it was all Lucifer's fault, and he started to make excuses, and Kia didn't expect her lodger to take over the cooking. She asked her uncle if the place was ready to open, and he said yes. Kia complimented the boys on their speed. The uncle admitted that Lucifer had been a great help, and afterwards said there was a topic of conversation to be had. Mayusama began to suspect that something bad was brewing. Masa said that the girl should think about raising prices, otherwise the place wouldn't even break even. He realized that she was constantly dismissing the idea, but there was a really good reason not to put it off, and Kia started to answer. The girl recalled her father's philosophy that the establishment should bring joy to the customers first and foremost and not leave them hungry. She began to cry, and her uncle couldn't take it anymore. He started shouting that it wasn't about profit, it was about staying afloat. Kia parried by saying that she hunted extra and sold bounties to do so. Taka noticed that his sister was exhausted because of the heavy and constant workload. The girl wanted to answer him, but her uncle assured her that the staff could be recruited once the family was financially stable. Kija shrank back from what was happening. She was uncomfortable, and her uncle saw and understood that. However, he still thought his niece was stubborn. Suddenly Masa turned his attention to Lucifer. He asked him to somehow convey the importance of this thought to the girl, to which Mayusama thought he was being scapegoated. The uncle wondered if Lucifer wanted to help, especially since he had become so wealthy. He must have understood something about entrepreneurship. Mayusama doubted that he could do it. He pondered, at this rate, if she didn't stop, it would lead to bad consequences. Lucifer now understood the feelings of his servant girls. After all, the desperate choice followed because there was no other, and one could answer unequivocally, finding oneself in such a situation again. But such an outcome was not for Kija. Mayusama turned to her. He said that although he was new here and his further words would sound strange, but the girl had misinterpreted her father's instructions. This caused perplexity. Lucifer continued, while Masa and Taka watched him, that the establishment should indeed make visitors happy. But even more joyful to them would be the fact that their favorite restaurant wasn't rotting away. Mayusama and the uncle looked at the girl. She reacted as if her heart had been torn apart. Then Masa asked if Kija realized what he had said, and the girl was immersed in memories. She saw herself as a little girl and her father standing in front of her. And Kia realized that the restaurant brought happiness not only to the customers, but also to the family. The father turned to his daughter and extended his hand to her. She was mesmerized and extended her hand in return. Kia kept floating in her memories as suddenly someone's voice called out to her. Meanwhile, Lucifer wondered if everything was okay while Masa and Taka stared perplexed at what was happening. Kija cried. Suddenly, she bowed and said that she humbly admitted her mistake of miscommunication. The girl realized all the mistakes. She said she shouldn't cry in front of them. And then Kia cried out that the customers would not be dissatisfied if everything was explained to them competently. Uncle agreed with these words and Taka said that his sister could leave this task for him. Kia was ready to change the price tags, to which Uncle replied that it had already been done, so it was left to be noted that the quality of the food should also become appropriate. Lucifer rejoiced at the girl's revitalization as Taka asked what the guy planned to do. Mayusama offered his helping hand. Kia was only glad and grateful for the guy's complacency. Everything and everyone was ready for the new business day to begin. Kia gave the command to open the place. The doors were opened and everyone was invited to the Foxy lunch. The action moved to the headquarters of Valhalla. Reina cried and blamed fate for the injustice, for she too wanted to go on an adventure. Despite her continued complaints, Roroa sternly told her that she couldn't do that. Mora, who didn't understand the reason for the tears, joined the dialogue and Roroa was about to voice her request. According to her calculations, there was no way Rayana could go. Mora clarified, the leaf of the world tree wouldn't help either. Roroa clarified that Rayana could not be altered in any way, regardless of her being a celestial fox, since this race's peculiarity is that every full moon circle increases their strength, and it's been a long time. The clone won't be able to cope with such power, and it will easily lead to soul drainage. Mora realized that her friend, though small, was so strong. She began to calm her down, but Rayana didn't want to back down. The girl wanted to be with the commander, and that brought a smile to Mora's face and resentment to Roroa's, as suddenly someone joined the dialogue saying that the king would have laughed a lot with what was happening. It was Drukus, and he said that it was obvious to him that Rayana would make things uncomfortable for Roroa. The empathetic girl agreed with those words. Drukus warned that angels were always tricky, so Rayana shouldn't be in that state of mind. Mora politely suggested her friend to eat a slice of cake to calm down, but she didn't agree, because it was wrong to do it without the commander. Roroa was thinking about something, and Drukus noticed. The demon gave the go-ahead. Roroa turned to Rihanna. She stepped closer, causing the fox girl to look at her in surprise. She waited and rapt attention to see what her friend would say. The action shifted to the fox lunch. At the front door hung a sign that said that the establishment was looking for workers and adventurers. Meanwhile, the restaurant was in full swing, and Kai was once again being approached with orders. The girl turned to Lucifer, whose help she was counting on, and Mayusama, dressed in a suit and apron, was now taking orders as a waiter. This angered the customers who had come to the establishment for the girl, to which Lucifer paid no attention and interrogated what the customers wanted to order. The man at the table grinned, then began pointing at the dishes selected on the menu. Lucifer warned that the prices for those items had recently been changed. The customer ironically replied that he wouldn't have realized it without the waiter's remark, and the waiter added that the establishment wasn't going to raise the prices further as it didn't make any sense. Lucifer approached Kia and shared his opinion that a good restaurant would have a lot of customers, to which Kia responded with worry that a little concern was there, but soon disappeared. The girl clarified whether it was Lucifer's first time working as a waiter, and he replied in the affirmative. Kia praised the guy for his experience, and he replied that it was surprising to him because he hadn't noticed it before. Mayusama explained it to himself as if his hands had been trained to do it for many previous attempts. The waiter brought the dishes to the customers, and their appearance made them marvel at them. They were two super attractive and flirtatious girls who immediately started saying compliments about the food and the waiter's appearance. Lucifer advised to start eating as soon as possible, to which he received an answer whether he would be free soon. Suddenly the girls started hitting on Mayusama. One of them asked if she could be his guide. Another asked ambiguously if the waiter wanted to go to some exotic places, and all this made Mayusama madly embarrassed, which he did not know what to do. Suddenly someone called his name. All of this was Lucifer's vision. He apologized to the customers for the inconvenience and wanted to leave as one of the customers noticed that he had the same name as the Demon King. Kija asked if Lucifer was okay, and he answered in the affirmative. The hostess noticed that the guy was quite attractive to the customers, which made Mayusama uncomfortable, and that made Mayusama feel surprised. Kia asked if the waiter could see that the female customer was laying eyes on him, and Lucifer interjected that she was sure she did. The girl was surprised that the guy didn't notice it, but it paradoxically made him even more attractive, and that made him chuckle. Smugly, Mayusama said, suddenly contributing to the establishment. He observed the female customers who praised the food and prices and intended to bring their friends here. Lucifer realized the burden that would be placed on their shoulders, but Kia reassured him and praised him for keeping things running smoothly with his help. It was nearing the end of the workday, and the last customers were already rushing to eat. Lucifer volunteered to serve the menu himself. The door opened fully and Mayusama was about to greet the entrance. Suddenly the visitors were Rayana, who immediately saw her favorite king, and Roroa, who clearly saw Lucifer as the Demon King. Mayusama was taken aback. The confused guy asked why the girls had come here, to which Rayana said it was for the restaurant's food, and Roroa said they had stopped by to check on the commander. Rayana said there were a lot of positive reviews on the map about this place, and Roroa showed her phone, which had comments that praised the waiter, the owner, and the food. The fox girl clarified that Lucifer really does work here as a waiter, and added that he probably does it as a favor to the Demon King. Mayusama told them to take a table. Rayana started to play the role of a customer and asked for fruit, wine, and meat. The girl wanted to add something, but Roroa gagged her and asked for the same, and the waiter accepted it. Lucifer wanted to go for the dishes as Rayana grabbed him by his suit and tearfully asked him to stay, but Roroa besieged her friend, demanding not to obstruct the waiter's work. A confused Lucifer asked Lucifer to wait for his customers. Rayana stammered at the way he'd named them. Roroa smirked as well. Kia asked Mayusama if he knew the girls, and he answered in the affirmative. Roroa noticed that they had managed to get close to the commander and threatened her friend not to blab about the secret surveillance. Rayana resented why Roroa and Drukus, who demanded that the girls be returned to headquarters immediately upon refusal, were being so strict since the commander would not be indifferent to their concern. After all, Mayusama loves them. Lucifer told Kai that the orders were about to be ready and she thanked him for his obligingness. The waiter approached the customers, and Rayana asked if he was done with his work, to which Roroa again reprimanded her friend for not disturbing the Demon King. Kia, who had been watching, asked if Lucifer was really called the Demon King, and he hesitantly agreed. But Kia was concerned about why he was also being addressed as Daddy, which made her wonder. But Mayusama hastened to reiterate that those thoughts were wrong. Masa said the order was ready, and Lucifer went to take it to him, as he suddenly noticed that the portion was a different size than what was on the menu, to which Masa replied that the last of the day's customers should just get it. Kia told the waiter to enjoy the meal in the evening with his acquaintances, and the waiter responded with gratitude. Lucifer brought the order and the girls responded positively. Roroa said that since they were the last visitors, Mao-Usama should join them, and Rayana agreed, giving way to the commander's seat. Fruit wine was poured into mugs and a toast to the reunion was proposed. All three of them cheerfully clinked their glasses. A satisfied Rayana praised the food, to which Lucifer said it was because it was made with quality and heart, and Roroa echoed those words. Mao-Usama asked how the subjects were doing, to which Rayana replied that it was fine and they were busy doing things too. Here the guy decided to clarify what kind of things they were doing. The girl was just about to reply that the subjects were watching the Demon King, but didn't have time as her friend closed her mouth. Roroa said that they had formed a new organization, and Rayana confirmed it, saying that she was involved too, and showed her business card. The commander took it and read the inscription, which was called Lucifer's Commercial Guild, and said that Roroa was the director and Rayana was the consultant. Mao-Usama didn't like that his name was appearing somewhere again, to which Roroa parried that this was how the king's reputation was maintained, and Rayana added that Drucas had become president of the organization. Lucifer realized that their guild worked on the same principle as the others. They extracted rewards from the tower and traded them in the same way. He stroked Rihanna and said cheerfully that his servants had grown so much, to which she smugly replied that of course they had changed in 1,000 years. Lucifer ironically remarked that even so, the fox girl should still drink juice instead of wine, to which Rihanna grudgingly replied that she was old enough for that, and Roroa grinned. Meanwhile, Kia watched the trio and saw them having a good time. She wondered who they were to each other, to which Tucker replied that from the outside they looked like a family led by their father. But that still didn't take away from the mystery of what was going on. Kija felt some kind of resentment. She saw those emotions, which are characteristic only of those close to them. Masa offered to take the opportunity to serve a new dish, and Kia agreed to do so. The hostess approached the trio with the dishes and caught their attention. She placed a plate on the table with a dessert that looked like cheesecake with syrup and strawberries, and the female visitors reacted enthusiastically to it. Lucifer asked what it was, and she said she decided to add something new to the wine and asked to try it. Oroa and Rayana tasted it. Pleasure reflected on their faces. They were pleasantly surprised by the flavor. Mao-Usama also tried it and was of the same opinion. He thanked the hostess and ironically added that girls liked sweet things. Oroa had a thought and called out to Kia. She thanked the hostess for taking care of Lucifer and handed over a note. After reading it, Kija was surprised by the contents. It said Lucifer's Commercial Guild and that Roroa was the director. After that, the mistress was also handed a black box. Kia was embarrassed by the gift, and then Lucifer joined the dialogue, who didn't understand what was going on, but Roroa said that the contents of the box should be looked through later. Roroa then suspiciously began to get ready to leave so as not to delay the owners before the establishment closed. Rayana pitifully asked if they couldn't stay longer, to which she was briefly and sternly lambasted. The fox girl tearfully asked to go back inside, and Roroa complied. Both of them went back. Roroa thought how very comforting it was to realize when she had found her quiet corner. Soon, Rayana and Roroa said goodbye to the commander. He said the same. That's how the girls found themselves outside. Rayana was filled with happiness and Roroa was calm. Lucifer grinned at them, and Kija said that these girls were wonderful. Mao-Usama apologized for the delay, and the hostess said it was nothing, but decided to ask him who the girls were. The guy replied that the girls were adopted by him after they lost their parents, and that's why they addressed him as daddy. Kia wondered if it was right for such young beings to be so early in the organization as a realization suddenly hit her. She astonishedly clarified if Lucifer was the owner of this organization and if that was the reason he was so rich. The guy replied that he once owned it, and that answer made Kia transfixed by Mao-Usama's success rate. However, Lucifer firmly said that it was a thing of the past, to which Kia decided to clarify what was the reason for him stepping down as head of the organization. The guy answered frankly that he was bored with the title and power, whereas what he really wanted was a measured and ordinary life. He wanted to be a human being. It was a gift to Mao-Usama that he had found a place like Fox's Lunch and a friend like Kia. The hostess was embarrassed and responded with gratitude for such words and added that her father would definitely like a guy like Lucifer. Meanwhile, Kija decided to check what was in the black box given to her by Roroa. When she opened it, she saw a new phone, similar to the one Lucifer used, and was immensely pleased with it. Mao-Usama looked at it and thought how much this device would help in the tower. He couldn't believe that Roroa had dared to give such a thing to a stranger. Kia asked to teach her how to use the phone, and the boy agreed to do so. Meanwhile, night fell over the city. Varroa and Rayana kept heading back and discussed tonight's event, the success of which they amicably agreed on. However, Rayana was upset that it was just the two of them checking on the commander, and suggested that next time she call the others, when she suddenly noticed that something was wrong. Varroa was deep in her own thoughts and was discouraged about something. The fox girl immediately began to apologize for her tactlessness and emotionality that was causing difficulties. Varroa said firmly that there was nothing to apologize for, and began to condemn herself for her shortcomings and mistakes, because of which she could not deservedly become the assistant to the Demon King. Rihanna didn't like this tone of speech and complimented her friend, calling her a genius. Finding the right words of encouragement, the fox girl said that it would all work out soon, and Varroa thought for a moment. She said that she had been waiting for such a moment for a long time. Varroa began to build a logical chain. Since the body can work without a soul on the power of magic, it remains to find the right brain to control it. The girl told Rayana about the new development, the best artificial brain that had been created, and she expressed an emotion of approval. The idea of artificial intelligence sounded inspiring, and Varroa's new development could help their cause. Varroa asked the girl if she could do it in person, and she said yes, she could get as close to Lucifer and Kai as possible, because she had all the data about the city. Varroa said emphatically that this was great news and she expected a favorable outcome. Aurora, who resembled Varroa in every way except age, replied that she could be relied upon. The action shifted to the ship which stood on the wharf and which the travelers were boarding. One of the crew told the captain that the ship was loaded. The cloak for the ship was also in place. An angel standing in front of the captain clarified if the crew was ready. The captain with a patch over one eye confirmed that thought. The angel said it was time to depart, as here the captain mentioned demons. There was a need to clarify a question for the crew. The captain tried to understand why so many weapons were taken on the ship, to which the angel told not to worry. All demons to the last will be killed, because they deserve such a fate. The angel threatened the captain that if the crew of the ship chickened out, it will find another performer of this task, to which he hastily apologized for his prank. He firmly decided that it would be sacrilege to him if he refused to fulfill the assignments of the higher powers, whereupon the captain gave the command to unmoor. The ship was given the go-ahead. Meanwhile, one of the crew asked what demons look like, to which he was told that they look like humans, including women. Discussions continued in the hold, how long the demons held out under the onslaught of attack, how the angels were intolerant of the race, and how humans had been chosen to exterminate them. One inebriated man smashed a bottle over his head and loudly declared that he would be cruel to any demon, and asked who would be willing to match him in number of kills. Everyone reacted to his words with chuckles. The captain went into the hold and assessed the fighting spirit of the crew, and was then asked what he himself thought about it. The captain demanded attention to the ship's defenses, and the crew members stated that everything was made safe and sound. He was glad of this fact, when suddenly a bright light began to shine through the portholes, and everyone noticed it. Going up on deck, the captain wondered how the dawn could have formed in the middle of the night. Suddenly his face was horrified at what he saw. In the sky above them was Rayana, creating a trail of fire with her magic. She said the people had misbehaved and deserved to be punished. The bewildered crew cried out in horror at the fate that awaited them. The barrier was shattered and an explosion went off. Bright flames lit up the water surface and a huge cloud of smoke rose into the sky. The explosion was so powerful that the spray from the blast traveled for miles. The ship was destroyed. The angels didn't expect it to happen much sooner than expected and wondered how the demon had managed to break the barrier. It became clear that this method didn't work. The underwater ambush may have ruined the whole plan, but that fact was unreliable. One of the angels said that, despite what had happened, the work had been done successfully, and for now it could be forgotten about it. A dark spot with two glowing dots appeared in the water, which looked suspiciously like the engines of a submarine. A joyous Rayana announced her return. Mora was proud of her friend and began to hug her, while Drucas praised the girl for the dedication with which she had chosen to ambush her in such a remote location. Drucas realized how high Roroa's technology was and ordered her to warn the troops on the ground to retreat. Rayana boasted about how much she had managed to scare the humans, and Roroa replied that they probably thought the demons would use scouting magic, against which the defense had been set up. But the demons were smarter than that. They used surveillance from space, which no one would suspect. Drucas was thinking about something, and seeing that, Rayana asked what was bothering him. While she was eating with Mora, he asked if she had noticed anything unusual about the people on the ship. Rayana, eating her cookies, replied that she hadn't discovered anything new, which even made her feel wistful. Aurora noticed that in 1,000 years the angels had not changed their fighting tactics. Regular ambushes were still used. Drucas wondered if the angels were up to something else, as Drucas pondered their organization's responsibility to protect their race, and whether the angels were trying to figure out who the Demon King had moved into. Rayana offered him some treats. He gladly accepted them. Aurora said that Drucas shouldn't worry too much as she continued to monitor what was going on, and he replied that he trusted her. Mora praised Aurora for her care and concern for the king and the island, to which she replied that she trusted Aurora to watch over the commander. Her help was greatly relied upon. Meanwhile, the action moved to the second floor of the wasteland, where Kia and Lucifer were fighting monsters. Hearing the girl's warning, Mayusama took on one of them. He was ready to attack and taunted his opponent to come closer, as suddenly his foot was trapped in a trap. Dodging the blow, Lucifer threatened the monster. Using a purification spell, Lucifer broke free from the trap, got off the ground, and delivered a fatal blow to the bird monster. After that, he landed. A frightened Kia asked if everything was okay, and the guy answered in the affirmative. Mayusama realized that there was more than one trap on the floor, to which his partner made a remark to be more attentive. Lucifer realized that he hadn't felt such nervous tension for a long time. But most importantly, it appeared on the second floor of the tower. The action moved to the guest house. Kija said that the last hunt had been difficult, but with Lucifer's strength it would soon become easier as he rolled out the dough with a rolling pin. She added that, of course, it was tiring to be constantly checking for traps, to which Mayusama replied that she needed to rest and find a helper. Kia said that no one had responded to the announcement at the entrance yet, so they would have to wait some more. The girl warned that what Lucifer was cooking would be the main course, so they had to do their best, and the guy assured her that he would show the utmost professionalism. Kia was surprised at how Mayusama wanted to bake the dish, to which he assured her that the flavor would be better that way, and she praised him for his unusual ideas. The guy modestly and self-ironically replied that he would have won someday, but right now he was far from the calling of a genius. There was a knock at the door, and Lucifer went to check. Opening the door, he said that the establishment was currently closed. However, something surprised him. Standing on the doorstep was Aurora with a suitcase and an announcement in her hands. Lucifer was stunned and thought that Aurora was in front of him. Soon all three were eating cheese pizza. Kia burned herself and Lucifer reprimanded her to take her time, then turned to Aurora to ask her opinion of the dish. She unemotionally replied that it was delicious. Mayusama thought how much that facial expression reminded him of young Aurora. The pizza was eaten and a happy Kia thanked Lucifer for it. The hostess thanked Aurora for deciding to join the Fox's meal. Kija asked if the girl wanted to work at their restaurant, and she replied that she wouldn't mind going hunting as well. The hostess was quite surprised by that, and Aurora said that a proper schedule could be created for that. But Kia stopped her, saying that wouldn't be necessary, because Aurora was exactly what the establishment had been looking for so long. Kia shared with Lucifer the impression that it had happened so suddenly that it was hard to believe, but the guy began to doubt it. It all seemed suspicious to him. Aurora was a copy of Aurora, only more mature. Kia hurried to pour tea into Aurora's cup, who had just run out. Mistress asked Lucifer to show everything the new member of the team needed, and he agreed. Kia left the room, and a dialogue ensued between the demon and the artificial intelligence. Mayusama asked why Aurora was doing this when he had made it clear that he wanted a normal life without any interference, and Aurora replied that he had misunderstood everything. She explained that she was composed of an artificial body and an artificial brain. While Lucifer marveled at Aurora's genius, Aurora added that she had no more power than a normal human, which meant that she was nowhere near the power of a demon king. Mayusama remarked that he did not sense any demonic power in her. Then why did Aurora appear here? And the girl answered bluntly that it was to make Lucifer feel the love of Aurora. Those words made the boy embarrassed. Aurora repeated her thought, and Mayusama hoped that it would be the kind of love feelings a daughter has for her father, and the android confirmed it. The girl added that she was also ordered to protect Lucifer if need be. The boy realized that it really wouldn't be unreasonable to do so. Her emotionless expression and rational words told him that she wasn't lying. After all, Mayusama himself had personally authorized his servants to do as they saw fit, which meant that no one was deceiving anyone. At that moment, Kia brought tea. As she poured the contents of the teapot into cups, she asked if everything was all right, to which she received an affirmative answer. It was important for Lucifer to get Kia's opinion of Aurora, and she remembered that she needed to give her answer. The hostess felt that Aurora should have no problem with her duties at the restaurant, but regarding the tower hunt, she decided to run a test to see if the girl had any fighting ability. Aurora clearly stated that she was capable of fighting monsters, and Kia replied that she was serious, and she and Lucifer needed to see if that was true. During the dialogue, the hostess waved her hands and accidentally hit a teacup, which flew down and was bound to shatter. Aurora suddenly reached for it. She managed to catch it, which immediately caused astonishment. She also managed to do it in such a way that not a single drop of the contents spilled on the floor. Impressed, Lucifer and Kia praised her for such a reaction, while Aurora, sipping her tea, replied that it was nothing special. Mayusama said that she could be relied on, and the hostess realized it. Kia took Aurora's hands and said she would give her a test to handle, and the android took note of that. Kia marveled at Aurora's appearance. The android was wearing Kia's mom's dress. Lucifer agreed with this compliment. Aurora said it was so because of the data she had collected. Kia didn't quite understand the phrase and was about to tell whatever it took, but the android said that it wouldn't be required. Aurora explained that she had been watching closely how the mistress worked, so she understood exactly what was required of her, much to Kia's surprise. Lucifer asked if the android had prepared in advance, to which Aurora countered that she needed to gather all the data, and Kija concluded that the girl was a quick learner. Now it was to see exactly what Aurora had learned, and she was ready to be backed up in case of problems. Kija warned her to be polite to the customers. That was the most important thing, and Aurora understood. So the preparations for the restaurant began. At one point, Lucifer noticed Kia's attention. He noticed how skillfully and quickly the android was running errands. Masa noticed that the choice made was the right one. Besides, the girl reminded her mom very much, and Kija confirmed it. Taka ironically said that the girl was a perfect match for Lucifer's taste, causing him embarrassment. Masa shared that he thought it would be nice if Lucifer and Kia were the ones to continue to run the business, causing misunderstandings and embarrassment for him. Soon the preparations of the place for the opening were completed and it was time to relax. Afterward, Aurora came in and said that everything was saddled up. All four of them looked rather at the emotionless girl and the work she had done. Soon the doors of the restaurant were open and everyone was invited to the Foxy lunch. The establishment was filled with customers and they all wanted to order. Lucifer and Kia used every part of their bodies to carry the food and were surprised to see such pandemonium at such an early hour, and on Aurora's first day of work. At this time, the android was deftly serving all the dishes. She was already taking another order from a customer. Aurora was so fast that it seemed as if there were 3 waiters walking around the place. Lucifer admired what was going on, and Kia was amazed that Aurora copied her technique so accurately that she skillfully used the family technique of carrying dishes on her tail, although she didn't have one. More customers entered the restaurant, and one of them let slip that he'd finally seen that beautiful girl everyone had been talking about. Meanwhile, a lusty customer intended to touch Aurora in an intimate place, but he was annoyed when the waitress deftly dodged his hand. Lucifer's friend said she could really work here if she could even do that. Mayusama himself thought that her reaction was a sign of her good fighting skills. Meanwhile, 2 flirtatious girls who had once appeared to be hitting on Lucifer came into the restaurant. The workday came to an end and the last customers were thanked for their visit. Kia's whole body was whimpering with fatigue. Lucifer fared better while Aurora remained full of energy. The hostess happily announced that the profits for today were much higher, which was good news. But none of this would have been possible without the main ingredient of success. An overjoyed Kia rushed to hug an emotionless Aurora and afterwards said that she was accepted. The android replied that she was overjoyed, though her facial expressions didn't match her words, and Lucifer noticed it. He clarified if Aurora could actually analyze and afterwards copy someone's movements and techniques, and she replied that she was capable of doing so given the completeness of the data. As expected, the android was a fast learner. She was good at it just like Lucifer was. Mayusama thought that was only half true. After all, he was doing something unconsciously because his hands just remembered it. Aurora's abilities came from her artificial brain, while Lucifer's came from his subconscious. Kia offered the android a shower and then turned to the guy. She boasted that he could create water, and warm water, like a master of hot springs, and this wording confused Lucifer. It was just an excuse to practice magic, and Aurora just needed to relax. Mayusama prepared the bath and checked the temperature. He saw Aurora and said her readiness as he was suddenly surprised. The android undressed right in front of the guy, not shying away from her naked and seductive body. The girl said she didn't expect otherwise and then asked to be left alone. A stunned Lucifer walked out. Mayusama got nervous and asked Kia how it was possible to combine unusual behavior with a neutral expression, and she replied that she didn't see anything strange in it. A few days passed and it was time to go out hunting. Kia came to Lucifer's room and woke him up loudly and cheerfully. The boy didn't understand why the rise was earlier than usual this time, but his mistress didn't see the differences. Mayusama looked out the window and asked if Kia was sure she wanted to go hunting with Aurora right now, and she answered in the affirmative. Lucifer yawned sweetly. Aurora was already dressed in her battle gear and ready with all her weapons. Mayusama remarked that it would be easier for her to move, to which the android responded by thanking him for the compliment and clarifying that the uniform had been chosen based on calculations. Lucifer noticed that Aurora had chosen a dagger as her weapon of choice. Kia looked into the room and asked if her friends were ready, for it was about time to move out. The action moved to the first floor of the walls. The heroes were going to hunt here. Lucifer asked if Kia had mastered her phone, to which she answered in the affirmative and added that it had a very handy map app, although nothing could replace the real one. Soon Kia found what she was looking for. She said that their target was a boar horn and started to explain the tactics to defeat it, but Aurora interrupted her, asking only to tell her where it was located. The girl gladly did so. The android accepted the information. At this point she began to apply the spell. Kia was greatly surprised by this and Lucifer's doubts began to creep in. Such detection magic was also inherent in Mora, and although the radius was limited, it could be 100 meters if used correctly. Then Aurora took off. Lucifer realized that this style of running, where one could remain undetected by enemies, was inherent to Rayana. Kija realized how close Aurora was to her target. The scouting magic had worked perfectly. The boarhorn had been spotted. The android pushed off the ground and soared into the sky. The monster suspected nothing. At the last moment it sensed danger, but it was too late, for Aurora had already drawn her dagger. With one precise blow she fell the boarhorn to the ground and pierced it. The monster's body soared into the sky. It landed in the android's hands as a reward. Aurora accomplished her task gracefully. Kia couldn't believe that the android was able to do it, and Lucifer noticed how good she was at wielding a dagger, just like Drucus was with his sword. This meant that the android had absorbed techniques from every servant of the Demon King. Lucifer made the decision to follow this up some more. Aurora sadly said that the boarhorn was the only thing she could find, and Kia resisted those words. She threw herself in with hugs and words that Aurora was just wonderful. A mortified Kia again hugged the android, who was once again neutral. Aurora asked if she had proven what she was capable of and was told that it was more than enough. Lucifer remarked that at this rate they would be able to get to the higher floors. Kija imagined that she would soon have the healing herbs in her possession, and she let out a tear. Mayusama noticed this and the girl apologized for her emotionality. He stroked the forest girl and was quick to point out that it was still a moment to live for. Lucifer took both girls by the shoulders, which caught their attention. He said that with such a team, all the floors of the tower would be easily cleared out with ease. The words brought a smile to both Kia and Aurora. The android replied that if that was Lucifer's wish, it would definitely be done. The action shifted to the demon headquarters. Aurora's phone vibrated. Rayana checked to see if the message was from Aurora, and Aurora said that everything was going according to plan. While the depths of the dungeon were being explored, it was only possible to observe through Aurora's phone. While wishing the Demon King all the best, the action returned to the trio. Kia was surprised to see that Aurora had a phone as well. The android said it was part of her standard set of items. That meant that she was also a member of Lucifer's commercial guild. Lucifer hastened to justify himself. He hadn't known about it until now, but that didn't negate the fact that it was convenient and quick to commiserate through the phone. Kia agreed with that. Now all three of them had a phone, and it looked team-oriented. This time we had to reach the second floor during the hunt. At this rate, it was possible to go higher, and Lucifer volunteered to lead the way. No one resisted. Now Usama began to use magic to clear the way. In front of him, tree branches rose up and the water drained away. Kia was surprised at such power of magic, and Lucifer replied that with each new use it was getting stronger. The guy also didn't get exhausted because his magical regeneration also increased. This caused Kija to marvel. Suddenly, Aurora covered her partner's mouth with her hand, warning her that it was better not to continue such a conversation. Kia agreed, for it was important to concentrate on the main goal. Lucifer realized that Aurora's rationality evoked a sense of reliability. Suddenly, Kija's ears picked up a noise. It resembled the flapping of wings. Suddenly, the source of the noise revealed itself. Lucifer took the girls behind his back, because the monster, although it was still alone, it was a danger. It was important to stay alert. The android's phone vibrated. A killer wasp was hovering in front of them, eating its prey, whose strengths were its powerful jaws and deadly instant venom, and which was much more dangerous in a swarm. It was necessary to kill the monster while it was alone. Lucifer began to conjure, expecting a quick kill. A fire bullet spell came off his hands. It went straight for the head of the killer wasp. Suddenly, the monster moved out of the spell's trajectory as he was distracted by the beast on the branch. The fire bullet hit the killer wasp's body, but did not kill it. The enraged monster spotted the enemy, and Lucifer realized that this was a serious misstep. The killer wasp began to emit a nasty sound, which hit the ears so hard that they had to be forcibly closed. It was only necessary to move away from the effect of this sound, as suddenly happened what all travelers feared happened. With its squeak, the monster summoned a swarm, which approached furiously. Lucifer commanded them to step back and began to use magic. A powerful shield stopped the monsters from killing the offenders. At that moment, the guy applied a stone wall spell and the trio was covered by a box. Her armor was enough to prevent the killer wasps from breaking through with their stingers. At this time, Lucifer was very sorry for his mistake. What had happened was not in the hero's plans. Here Kia was surprised that Mayusama could also create a protective wall. She was afraid that the monsters could penetrate the walls, but Lucifer assured her that the armor was strong and thick. There was no other choice but to stay in that box. That's when Aurora stepped in. To Kia's surprise and indignation, she offered to eat, as it was necessary to make good use of the time spent in safety. Lucifer agreed and pulled out some honey. Kia blamed both of them for their lack of excitement, and while the others ventured out to prepare a meal, Aurora had an idea. She asked Lucifer, whom she called a master craftsman, to make a hole in the box so he could shoot off killer wasps. The android had a modified rifle with him. Mayusama honored her wish. One of the monsters was picked up by Aurora. With an accurate shot, she hit the target. Lucifer offered to join the process of exterminating the killer wasps, and Kia accepted. Kia's ears picked up some sounds. The heroes were cooking dinner, and thought it was a great idea. Kia said she envied Lucifer's ability to use magic in household tasks, and he saw it as flattery. All the cutlery and cooking ingredients were in place. Kia explained that she was not flattered at all, because such skills, which seemed basic to Lucifer, required training. While the girl was setting up the dishes, the guy said that he had steamed horn boar with magic, garnishing it with honey afterward. Soon Lucifer started roasting. The smell was so delicious that Kia even forgot that they were not in the cozy kitchen in the guest house. Meanwhile, Mayusama took out the family's signature sauce and seasoned the dish with it. Kia was already anticipating how delicious it was going to be, and in the meantime, Aurora had returned from shooting off and was ready to join the meal. Lucifer had almost finished cooking, and there on the table were horned boar sandwiches with spicy sweet sauce and honey lemonade, and it all looked great. Kia wished her a pleasant appetite, took her sandwich and took a bite of it. She could feel all the softness of the meat. Aurora tasted it too and said the sauce made the dish even better. Lucifer's culinary skills were praised, and his sauce idea deserved even more recognition. The Trinity finished their meal. Kia was thinking of putting this sandwich on the menu to attract more customers, and Lucifer would only be grateful for such a thing. The boy was once again embarrassed by these compliments. However, Kia pointed out that honey wasn't cheap, so there wasn't much money to be made from selling it, and they didn't believe her. Then she said that a bottle of honey cost 60,000 bars. However, the price justified the flavor. Meanwhile, Lucifer gave Aurora the assignment to check on the situation outside, and the android accepted it. The scans showed that no one was detected within a 30-meter radius. The decision was made to move out. Lucifer began to destroy the wall with magic and warned his companions not to get under the debris. As soon as the heroes got out, they saw something amazing. The very honey fell from the killer wasps as a reward, and there was plenty of it thanks to Aurora's work. In addition to the honey, there were poisonous stings and royal jelly scattered around the clearing. Kia imagined how much had been accumulated during this successful hunt, and Lucifer suggested to take a break at the entrance to the 3rd floor, as there was a lot of stuff to take in. Aurora agreed to the suggestion. Suddenly, Kia had thoughts about the honey she had collected. She felt sorry to just sell this treat like this and not share it. There was indeed a lot of honey, so the girl decided to add a dish with this honey to the limited edition menu. However, she was remarked that the dish would be expensive. However, Kia parried that what was more important to her was that the customer would stay happy. Aurora and Lucifer looked at her as a small child took its first steps. With that statement, the demon and android offered a portion of their meow reward to the hostess, much to her delight. Meanwhile, the action had moved to the ocean shore. 2 workers were loading bags of garbage and boards lying on the shore and discussing angels. Suddenly there was a sound that caught their attention. A huge black sphere appeared in front of them, the origin and nature of which they could not determine. All that became clear was that it smelled terrible. One of the workers suggested that they stay away from it, and the other agreed. Both returned to their work while the sphere continued to lie on the shore. Soon, however, something began to happen to it. The action moved on to Fox's lunch. The Trinity enjoyed breakfast for the first time in a long time. Kia thought to return from the hunt earlier than last time, after which Lucifer asked her what she planned to do. The hostess said she would go to the guild and exchange items for rewards, then suggested she create a squad. She wasn't quite understood. She intrigued, saying that her friends would know more soon. A short time later, the trio stood on a city street, and Kia pointed to a building. Her entrance was decorated with flags and painted stone, and the main large doors were panoramic. The heroes stepped inside. The large building was created by Lucifer's commercial guild, where many talented people gathered. Kia was burning with impatience, for she wanted to meet the founder. Lucifer noticed a bust that looked like him. He soon asked what exactly Kia was looking for. She pointed to a pouch behind the glass, underneath which was signed 100 million. They were all healing herbs, which although expensive, had already been sold, as the note on the glass announced. It was surprising that the rich people were interested in such a commodity. The heroes realized that they could not afford such a sum, and then continued on their way. Soon they reached the exchange window. They were greeted. The guy behind the counter asked what brought Kia here. The girl didn't answer but held out a bag. There was a lot of honey in it. Kia noticed that this was the case because of her two friends, and this made the counter guy admire her. He began to evaluate the items to see how much it would come out to be. After a while, he finished and expressed his hope for continued cooperation. Kia walked over to Lucifer and while squeezing him, informed him that they had managed to earn 80,000. Everyone was smiling except Aurora. She was noticed, to which she replied that she wasn't. Kia showed her how to smile properly. She put her fingers to her mouth and stretched her lips. A bewildered Aurora tried to repeat it. Watching this, Lucifer thought how well the girls could get along with each other. Finally, the big moment had come. It was time to legally establish the squad's existence. Kia walked over to another window and said hello to Maria, who was sitting there. When asked what the fox girl was doing here, she replied that she had finally decided to register the squad. Maria greeted Aurora and Lucifer as well. The registrar said that you had to be really well prepared to join Kia, then held out a form that needed to be signed. She also gave a handbook that contained information about the items. The receptionist wanted to give some details about the guild. The guild specialized in helping adventurers. Items could be exchanged for money as well as creating weapons from slain monsters. This was a way to support the travelers, because they kept the monsters at bay. Lucifer realized that it was the adventurers' responsibility to keep the island safe, and then he held out the form. As suddenly the receptionist lay down on the counter to be as close to the guy as possible, and excitedly asked Mayusama to do his best for the protection of the world. An embarrassed Lucifer promised to do so. The receptionist added that outstanding and successful adventurers have special benefits. This item was designed for travelers to unleash their full fighting potential. The girl pointed to the left. On the wall hung a board announcing monthly rewards and rankings, and the higher the rank was, the higher the rewards as well. Lucifer was interested and decided to look into it. The receptionist finished the paperwork and then wished the newly formed Squad Fox restaurant the best of luck. On the bulletin board, a fun task with a reward of over 5,000 was at the top of the leaderboard. The heroes were looking at the ranking of the best squads when suddenly someone approached them from behind. It was 4 men from different races, and they spotted a fox girl. Kia fearfully mouthed the name of one of them, Shario. The fact that the girl had joined another team with a guy like Lucifer made their commander resentful. After all, he had warned that she would be loved in their circle. Mayusama asked if Kia knew them. Shario was surprised that the newcomer didn't know their name. After all, it was all written on the board. Their foursome was called Scarlet Fang and was in 9th place. Shario introduced himself, called himself the leader, and deliberately asked them to memorize the information. Lucifer reacted to these words with contempt. He demanded that the bullying stop. Shario asked how it was possible to express oneself in such a way in front of the best, and asked if Lucifer was saying it to please the girls. Meanwhile, a crowd gathered around the conflicting parties. The members of the Scarlet Fang began to scoff at Lucifer's threats because he didn't look threatening, especially since only they had the right to take Kia as a partner. However, Lucifer ironically parried that the girl had simply rejected Shario's feelings, but he was stubborn and unwilling to give up, and these words caused the gawkers to chuckle. This caused the leader of the Scarlet Fang to change his attitude into an angry one. He swung at Mayusama with lightning speed and wanted to hit him, but he dodged. At that moment, it became clear why Scarlet Fang was at the top. An agitated Kija tried to pull Lucifer away, but he firmly insisted that he would finish what he had started. Just as suddenly at that moment, a weapon extended from the surveillance camera on the ceiling, which Aurora noticed. She immediately used a spell to disable it. At that moment, Roroa was watching what was happening through that camera from the headquarters. She grudgingly shouted for Aurora not to interfere with the system while she watched Shario, whose hairstyle was disgusting to Roroa. Meanwhile, the conflict between the guys was escalating. Shario said that he shouldn't be underestimated and looked down on. So now Lucifer had to apologize on his knees. Kia and her dilapidated restaurant had to apologize. This addition suddenly made Mayusama unbearably furious, something his opponent could not have expected. Lucifer grew in size, his body covered in flames. Shario was stunned by what happened. It frightened him, and he grabbed the dagger. You could see his hands shaking with terror. An angry Lucifer reached out his hand to him. Shario cried out and covered himself with his hand. Something began to happen to him. His whole body trembled, but Mayusama intercepted the dagger. After that, Lucifer shrank back to his usual size. The co-commanders encircled the frightened leader, inquiring about his condition and preparing to engage him in battle. Lucifer looked on with a confident look, then began to speak. Only he and Aurora were fit for Kia. Scarlet Fang now had to wait and be afraid, for soon Fox Lunch would overtake them. So the boys had to leave Kia alone. The members of the Scarlet Fang looked at Lucifer in bewilderment, and one of them asked what would happen if he lost. Kia, as well as the girl with the big bust, would be on their team. Those words made the whole trio angry. Kia shouted that it would not happen, for Foxy Lunch would definitely win. These words surprised the members of the Scarlet Fang. The action moved to the city streets. Lucifer was perplexed by Kia's behavior, to which she asked him not to pay attention to what had happened. Kia said that their squad wouldn't lose because they have Lucifer, and Aurora agreed. The android said that, after analyzing the situation, it could certainly be argued that Mayusama was much more powerful, and Kia happily threw herself on her neck at such words. Lucifer, on the other hand, self-critically stated that despite that, he had many flaws. The fox girl was also humbled by the guy's support and ability to come to the rescue. Lucifer replied that it was only a friendly commitment. Those words brought a smile to Kija's face. The trio walked down the street towards home. After a while, night fell. The members of the Scarlet Fang were walking down the street and discussing today's situation, and the new dispute, it worried them, but they would still have Kia and Aurora at the end of the day. They were still discussing their selfish intentions when suddenly Shario shouted at them. He took a sip from the bottle of alcohol and ordered them to stick to their agreement, to which he was accused of cowardice. At that moment, they passed a man whose face and body were concealed by a white hoodie. He cast a stern look at Shario. Those eyes reminded him of Lucifer's evil gaze, and he was very much afraid. Unable to contain his resentment at the memory of his defeat, Shario lunged at the stranger and began to kick him while his companions began to stop him. One of the teammates did pull his leader away and asked what was wrong, to which Shario began muttering something about eyes. The stranger was lying with his arms spread out and appeared to be dead. The members of the Scarlet Fang dared to leave the place so as not to attract attention. Night continued to hang over the city. At one point, the stranger in the white robe who had been left behind rose to his knees. His face and hands were covered in blood. He staggered off in an unknown direction, wailing angrily about why there were no gods on this island. The stranger walked, leaning on a stick, and pondered that the selfish demons in their success counted on the Tower of the Gods, where they hunted and killed the gods' monsters. At one point, he fell to his knees and began to call out to the monsters to look at his power as well. The stranger intended to be the bait to wreak vengeance on the demons. His heart was filling with blood from the anticipation of a major victory, and soon the gods would punish the demons. But the stranger's strength was fading. Suddenly he saw a glow that cheered him up. In rapture, he reached for it. The glow came from the tower at the foot of which the stranger was kneeling. The action shifted to the Fox dinner. The visitors were discussing yesterday's incident at the guild, and one of them said that the Scarlet Fang squad, though strong, did not detract from their behavior. There were rumors of revoking that squad's license, but Lucifer had punished them in a different way for now. His gaze was enough to bring cold sweat and goosebumps to his opponents, and that made him abnormal. Mayusama was the epitome of adventurism, and it made the girls admire him and want to be closer to him. The customers also liked Lucifer's new dish. It was hard for them to realize that this guy was capable of anything. The customers raised their glasses to the future success of Kia and her squad. They wished for the top of the table, and the defeat of Scarlet Fang. The hostess rejoiced and thanked for such words. Lucifer realized that in order to rise in the rankings, it was necessary to go on a scouting trip for 3 days. But with a tight schedule, such an opportunity was not foreseen. Closing the restaurant for any length of time was also impossible. It was also hopeless to rely on the strength of Taki and Masa alone. The realization came that it was necessary to hire staff as soon as possible, because there was a lot of work to be done. Suddenly, Aurora burst into this train of thought with her proposal. New customers were arriving at the restaurant, and this time they were served by the same flirtatious girls. Kia and Lucifer watched it from the side and were proud of the success of this idea from Aurora, to which she said that it could not be otherwise. The hostess said that the money that came in gave more opportunities, but at the same time she was worried that the place might run without her. Lucifer calmed her down by saying that the girl was pushing herself too hard, because she wouldn't be able to climb to the 6th floor. If the Scarlet Fang was defeated, the heroes would be able to obtain the Universal Elixir. Kia agreed and said that as soon as her mom got back, she would be able to do more restaurant work, so she had to get started now. The action moved to the 4th floor of the tower, where the trio had already been for the 3rd day. The heroes were walking through the forest. Kia stepped on a branch that was a trap. The tentacles pulled the girl. Kia reacted by drawing her sword and chopping off one of the tentacles. She continued to chop them until they stopped attacking. Returning to Lucifer, the girl apologized for her inattention. At that moment, the trio was confronted by an ant, a monster whose specialty was disguising itself to attack its prey. The tree was showing signs of life. Suddenly, one of the branches swung at the heroes. Lucifer immediately reacted and sliced it in two. The enemy was not going to give up so easily, so it was the right time to use Aurora's help. The android had already pulled out her rifle. With precise shots, she began to hit the target. The ant screamed, but not from the wounds, but from rage. Lucifer realized that the tree would feel no pain. He asked his partners to step aside as he had a solution. Mayusama began to use magic, and at that moment, the blue flame spell burst from his hands. The smoke from the burning wood rose to the sky. The enemy was burning brightly and intensely. The enemy was strong in all parameters, so it would be possible to defeat him only with the help of magic. Aurora moved closer to Lucifer and said that fire magic looked beautiful in Mayusama's performance. The guy thought it was suspicious that the android had started to shorten his distance and was getting more and more involved in the discussion. Meanwhile, some quality cypress planks had fallen off the end, but they were large and heavy, so there would be no way to pick them up. Suddenly, Kia noticed something. She cried out that there was something under the tree. At that second, silhouettes began to emerge from the haze. They were poisonous matangos, mushroom-like creatures whose specialty was their corrosive and hallucinogenic pollen. The trio instantly climbed a tree from where the monsters couldn't reach them. The luthier praised Kia's reaction, which made them safe now. He began stroking the girl's head, while at the same time the android was giving it a strange look. Aurora resolutely volunteered to deal with the monsters and took out her rifle, preparing to fire from a tree branch. The casings from the spent cartridges were falling from the branch. Soon after killing the monsters, Lucifer began frying mushrooms. The small temporary box was getting more and more cozy, with which going on long hikes became more and more familiar. The small walled cabin was really a place to live in, despite the potential dangers in the neighborhood. Lucifer was finishing roasting the beef. Aurora asked if they had gotten it after going to the 3rd floor. She was answered in the affirmative, and in the meantime Mayusama was finishing the soup, to which he wanted to add milk for a better flavor. It was a wonderful and incomparable feeling of anticipation from hot meat in cold weather. Aurora's stomach was already rumbling. She was embarrassed about it and tried to excuse herself, to which Mayusama simply suggested that they move on to the meal as soon as possible. The trio sat down at the table where there were plates of appetizing soup and buns. After tasting the soup, the partners commented on the wonderful flavor of the mushroom dish. Suddenly, Lucifer remembered something at the mention of mushrooms. He asked Aurora what kind of growth powder she kept at her place, to which she replied that it was a non-drug, non-harmful substance that helped relieve stress. Tija also used it to increase her strength, since she didn't have magic. It could increase her strength, but there was a catch. The powder was also magic. The strengthening power suited Kia, and creating a substance that matched her body's biology was based on sensory perception. Only the trio knew of this method. Aurora advised a training scheme for Kia, based on which she should focus on honing her wind magic, since her internal energy matched it. That sounded great, since it didn't hurt Kija in any way. The fox girl was happy about this, and asked to be taught, to which she received an affirmative answer. At this point, Lucifer headed for the exit and was asked where he was going. Mayusama replied that he was going to the 3rd floor to relax. The girls looked at him approvingly. That's how Lucifer found himself outside. The weather was cool. Mayusama decided to do something. Using magic, he began to build the walls of a building. The demon wondered if the small house could be enlarged. Then he erected a roof and began to move stones. After moving some stones, he stopped, as there were enough to relax. Using water magic, Lucifer finally finished. Meanwhile, Kia and Aurora were in the room at the table. The android was explaining where to come for basic knowledge and Kia was memorizing it. For her craving for new knowledge, Aurora stroked the girl's head and praised her, which made her both embarrassed and mortified. Then she began to explain the technique. Everything was going smoothly when suddenly something began to happen to Aurora. Her mind became confused and confusing. She stood behind Kija's back. Her whole body trembled as if every cell was telling her to do something. Kia turned around and asked if her friend was okay, to which she replied in the affirmative. At that moment, Lucifer walked into the room with the news. He took the girls aside and showed them a big amazing bathtub. Kija couldn't believe that something like this could be set up in the tower. But in the meantime, Lucifer offered the girls a bath while he went to prepare the sleeping quarters. Mayusama had also prepared 2 barrels for dirty clothes. Kia confidently suggested to Aurora to go to the bath together, however she became hesitant. The fox girl stated that the android should not be shy, and the android finally agreed. Lucifer wished the girls to enjoy their time together, but Aurora was upset for some reason. While Mayusama was using magic to clean up the bedroom, he was thinking that something strange was happening to Aurora, and could it be the growing up period? It was just like her, and that made Lucifer feel happy. Meanwhile, in the bathroom, Kia was already undressing. She was hurrying Aurora, who couldn't get undressed. She couldn't understand her new body, which had grown considerably in some places, and then Kia volunteered to go first. The hot water was steaming. Kia and Aurora sat in the bathtub. The fox girl was enjoying the process when suddenly the android turned to her. She asked what her friend thought of Lucifer. Kia replied that she saw him as a wonderful partner, but Aurora clarified that she was referring to the feelings the girl had for the guy. Kia hesitated and replied that Lucifer was like a father to her. But as for the feelings one has when they like each other, the answer was simple for Kija. She had no love for Lucifer. There was an awkward pause in the dialogue. Aurora noticed that everyone loved Mayusama, which was true, and that was why she was sad about how difficult it was. Kia didn't understand the meaning of her friend's words, but the latter didn't explain it. Soon the steamed up and relaxed girls returned to the house. Lucifer was happy for them and informed them that the beds were ready. He asked if the girls' mood had improved, and Kia replied that it was fun to chat with Aurora. The guy asked what the subject of the discussion was, but Kia tactfully refused to reveal all the cards, and Lucifer played along with her. While the fox girl said she wished to go to bed, Mayusama picked up the bath things. Kia yawned and kept talking about how she was very tired all day. Meanwhile, Lucifer headed for the exit, and Aurora followed him with a look. Suddenly a thought popped into her head. Lucifer got to the bathtub and began to undress and noticed how muscular his body was. He stepped into the tub, made himself comfortable, and began to enjoy the evening. There was nothing more beautiful than taking a hot bath under the scenery of the moon in the night sky. All he needed to complete the picture was some wine. Suddenly the door to the room opened and Lucifer was surprised to see it. He couldn't believe his eyes. In front of him stood Aurora, whose body was wrapped in a towel.